Thank you very much. When I was asked to share this evening, I thought, what is the singular most essential thing that I'd like for you to take away? And can everybody hear me? My center is named Shekinah because it comes from ancient Judaism and really means the divinity that exists within each one of us. And hence, what I wanted to share with you really, the takeaway was that at this point in history, we are exceeding all the limits of what was known to be possible in all fields and all spheres. We are stepping to a time in history where I think we are really realizing as human beings, or beginning to realize our potential. And we're beginning to experience ourselves in ways that was not necessarily possible throughout history. We have opportunity, we have means, we have technology, and we have what I refer to as the magic number ones. The magic number ones are people like Roger Bannister, who until he broke the 4-minute mile, it was not believed possible that humans can't do this. So 10 years ago, it was not believed that you could dive to much deeper than 30 meters on a single breath. Yes, with scuba equipment, you could, and because you were breathing consistently, yet on a single breath, as you descend, your lungs, what's the word? Contract, compress. And it was believed that if you hit 30 meters, literally your lungs would just rip to shreds. Well, a month ago, Alexei Molchanov broke 137 meters on a single breath at vertical glue. So it's so exciting to be living in this period in history. What is possible if we simply drop our self-talk of our own limitations, our excuses and our justifications for why we can't, and if instead we become curious like children and we say, what if? What if I could? What if it were possible? And we become playful with it. So for me, freediving, and I've written this down, freediving is a really effective way of addressing how our belief systems keep us limited. It's about the human capacity to conquer our perceived limitations, because that's all that they are. They are simply perceived limitations. So before we really get into it, I'd like to invite you to join me in a little exercise. I was assured that it's okay if we're a little bit weird. We're in good company. So sit up straight, if you will, uncross your hands and allow them just to relax very gently on your knees, and uncross your legs, keeping your feet on the floor. And if you'd like, as a means or an aid to focus and concentration, you can close your eyes. And as you do, I just want you, and you can join us on the Zoom group as well, I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose to the count of approximately 4. And I want you to hold that breath and become aware of how that feels, the expansion in your chest area. And then allow yourself to exhale very slowly through your mouth, very slowly, as though you're blowing a candle out. And taking another deep breath in through your nose to what feels like the count of 4, becoming aware of the tension in your shoulders and how on the out breath you can simply release that and let it go. Simply let it go. We'll just do this a few more times. Taking a deep breath in, becoming aware of how good that feels, holding it, feeling how your lungs are expanding, And slowly releasing that breath. And as you release the breath, you can let go of all the tension in your body just for now. You can let go of all the thoughts. Continuing to do that just a few more times. The in-breath, holding it. And on the out-breath, allowing yourself, giving yourself consent to simply let go. All of the tension, all of the thoughts, all of the events that happened earlier today and the things that might still happen. And just 2 or 3 more times, a deep breath in, holding it, and releasing it, letting go of all that which is concerning you. You can have it back after this if you really want it back. And just for now, you can simply let it go. One last time, deep breath in. Hold your breath. And a long, slow exhale. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And how do you feel? A little bit more relaxed, a little bit calmer, a little bit more at ease with simply being in this moment when nothing else matters, just in this moment. And yes, there may be events that's still going to unfold in your life, and yet for that moment only, you could almost describe that feeling as bliss. So I was very fortunate to be introduced to this freediving activity or practice, if you like, or experience, I prefer to call it, by a person by the name of John McCarthy. His Instagram handle is OceanChild001, or he also has an Instagram called Alchemotion. Because the philosophy behind freediving is what is most essential. You can have a better experience at 5 meters with a 1-minute breath hold than you could have at 30 meters with the 4-minute breath hold. And you will find that really experienced divers, when you come off the dive, they do not ask you, how deep did you dive? And they do not ask you how long you held your breath for. The only question is, how was that experience? Because it is about the difference, really, in a way, between scuba and freediving. Is scuba's external. What can I see? What's happening in the ocean? And freediving is very much an internal experience, an awareness of self, an awareness of your thoughts, your being, your state of being. It's meditation underwater, really. And you happen to see, perchance, dolphins, whales, sharks, and other sea life. So the entire experience of freediving is really about internal awareness. It's becoming competitive. And yes, it's fun to compete and it's fun to stretch the limitations of the human body. And yet at core and in essence, the philosophy of freediving, that's not what it's about. It's not about the numbers. And as soon as you set yourself free from that, immediately you'll find that your breath hold is extended anyway. Because when we place expectations on ourselves and we're projecting into the future, am I going to be able to do this? What's it going to feel like? How long am I going to be able to do it for? Immediately that's creating a lack of equilibrium in your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And you're beginning to experience stress responses, although they might simply be subconsciously. Already you're beginning to hold tension and expecting something to happen in the future instead of simply being in the moment. Whether that moment is 5 meters or 25 meters is irrelevant. What you'll see and what you'll attract at 5 meters is often more exquisite than what you'll attract at 20. So it's really about being so deeply connected with self, with body, with mind, and then automatically with the ocean. And that's the philosophy that really I would like to promote as far as the freediving community goes. So let's dig into, it's about the capabilities of your body, the way that your body communicates with you all the time, and how we listen to our bodies, our ability to reset the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. We're living in a world where there's more anxiety and more depression than ever before, and yet we have more access to wealth and life experiences. That doesn't make sense. We've lost the ability to simply disconnect and reset ourselves. And freediving offers that opportunity in a really incredible way. The awareness of how we are actually adapted to water very naturally, and I'm going to get into that as this talk continues. The awareness of how stillness, silence, and nature are so vital to mental, psychological, and physiological well-being. How to recognize the metaphors. There's so many exquisite metaphors in freediving. Recognizing them and applying them to your daily life. For me, that was one of the biggest game changers in my personal life, is taking the metaphors from freediving, which I'll also touch on. How breath is actually medicine, and how to be present in the now. So with that in mind, freediving offers an amazing opportunity to take yourself out of what we call the monkey mind. You know, that monkey mind, that chatter, that constant, those voices that talk to you all the time, where you have arguments with yourself and you negotiate with yourself and there's constant thoughts. So that's the monkey mind. And freediving offers an incredible opportunity to get out of your monkey mind, because in freediving, you can't fake it. You can't pretend to be okay. You can't push through an injury. It is an extreme sport. You can't act like you know what you're doing. And you can't even think your way through it. The preparation gets done beforehand. We train hard so that we can dive easy. In the dive, there's no thinking. There's simply meditation. So we jokingly say it's the only extreme sport that doesn't require adrenaline. So I am certainly not the guru. I dive consciously with people who are so much better than myself. I always choose people who are so much more skilled and more knowledgeable than myself in this field for two reasons. I can absorb best practices from them, and then I've always got a safety that's better than me. Really important. Hence, I've been diving, and my trainer has been Charles and Milani Muller from Pristine Freedive Academy. Charles has a breath hold of 7 minutes, 15 seconds, and he dives to 55 meters. So I work with those who are far more skilled than me. So how are our bodies adapted to this experience? In so many ways. I had a conversation with a gentleman earlier this evening, and we spoke about lung capacity. I cannot increase your lung capacity for you. It is what it is. What we can do in freediving is show you how to utilize 100% of your lung capacity. So when you take a deep breath, what people normally do, perhaps let's go ahead and do it. Take the deepest breath you can. Okay. And there you are. We had a conversation earlier this evening. You're only using one particular cavity, your chest cavity. Whereas in fact, we actually store or pack air in 4 different cavities. So those on Zoom, excuse me, I'm just going to stand for one moment. What you're doing, it doesn't look terribly glamorous for ladies who've been taught their whole lives to suck their stomachs in. But you're going to breathe into your stomach and expand your stomach with as much air as possible. So it's going to look something like this. So cavity number one is the stomach, then the chest area, then the throat area, and then you get a technique called packing, where you suck the last bit of air and you keep it here in your throat. So perhaps give that a try and see how long you can hold your breath. Just on that should double your 30 seconds to a minute, very comfortably. Just experiencing what that feels like and not necessarily noticing the time, becoming aware of how that feels in your body, where you're holding tension, what it feels like to release that. So it is far, far easier to hold your breath in water than it is on land. I haven't timed myself in a competitive circumstance on land, but I don't think I've ever made it to more than 4 minutes on land, because there is something called the mammalian dive reflex that kicks in. So we're dolphins, we're mammals. We've been connected to water all of our lives throughout history in various forms. So, you know that saying that we often use on children if they're starting to get fussy or have a temper tantrum or get really angry, and we say, just go splash some water on your face. I don't know if you've ever heard people say, just go and splash some water on your face. That actually has got science behind it. The minute you wet this area over here of your face, your pulse rate drops, your heart rate drops. And so you automatically feel calmer. And it sends a message to your brain to say, we're going underwater now. So drop all of your vital functioning so that you can be calm and at peace and allow the water to carry you. You're allowing the water to do the work. You're not doing very much of the work yourself. And then also it sends a message to your brain that, well, let's just close off that windpipe for now. So that water, the minute that mammalian dive reflex kicks in, you're almost supported. You actually feel lighter. It's not as heavy or as hard. You're not pushing against. You're not resisting anything. You're not pushing against gravity to hold your breath. So when there's no resistance, you're already conserving energy. So that's one of the little tricks. What's really, and there's a lot more clinical studies that have to be done on this. This is a very new and a very recent sport as such. So we're super excited. If there's anyone in the medical field who's interested to work with freedivers and do a whole lot of studies, we are super, super excited to be used as guinea pigs. When I say me, I mean myself and Charles. I'm not volunteering all the freedivers, because some of the studies have begun to show that if you freedive often, and it's not even necessarily much more than 20 meters that you need to go with the pressure of the ocean, you begin to release a lot more red blood cells. And so obviously that then supports the oxygen being carried through your body. So the oxygen automatically goes through your body a lot faster and a lot more effectively because you're releasing more red blood cells. Then doctors will argue and say, well, that could become dangerous because then the blood is going to get thicker and you could have a blood clot. But the incredible thing about the human body, and this is what is so fascinating about us as a species, is that the spleen of freedivers then enlarges to process and break down more of the red blood cells. And they have discovered that certain tribes in the Philippines have actually got, many of the people have got 2 spleens because they dive for a living. They dive to harvest oysters and they dive to, it's just customary. So the body is constantly adapting and responding to the signals you are giving it. And instead of this whole fear-based thing of how am I going to do this, or this doesn't make sense, just allowing your body to love you and support you. And obviously we enter into this slowly. You're not going to push yourself to a 20-meter dive in your first few experiences, because that's when ego steps in. And freediving is absolutely no place for ego. You will get injured if you're going to enter it with ego. And that's almost a guarantee. It's about your own personal experience in any given moment. So the body adapts with all those sorts of things and many more. The mind adapts in this way, that when you do, so static practice is when you just lie in a swimming pool or a body of water on the surface of the water. And that is to practice your breath hold, so that obviously you can just very quickly get air. So what we learn and how the mind adapts in statics is learning that you are in charge, not your body. That you get to tell your body how to manage itself. And this has been so interesting for me. This is one of the huge metaphors that I've been able to apply in my life, because the minute we have an emotion, we want to react and respond to that emotion. The minute we have a physical sensation, we want to react and respond to that. Whereas in fact, when you become familiar with your body and the signals it's giving you, you can thank it. I hear you, I acknowledge you, and I choose when we breathe. It's very interesting. If you put an oximeter measurement on your finger and you hold your breath for 3.5 minutes, your oxygen is still on somewhere, well, mine is on somewhere between 94, 92, 89 at the lowest. Your body's going into sort of convulsions, spasms, but you've still got so much oxygen. So what you're craving is not necessarily air or breath or oxygen. It is the intolerance in your body for the carbon dioxide buildup. And once you begin to notice that this is simply a signal that there's a carbon dioxide buildup, I acknowledge that, thank you, my mind will choose what I'm going to do with that information. So again, the gentleman and I had a conversation, and I'm so thankful we did, because I've thrown a couple of things in which I wouldn't have if not for our conversation. Some of the breathing techniques teach you to hyperventilate, to hold your breath longer. Not a good idea for freediving, not at all. Because what hyperventilation does is it overrides those signals of carbon dioxide buildup. So you get a lot of spear fishermen who hyperventilate. They go down, they get one signal that the body's now at its ultimate limit, and then it's too late. So when you hold your breath for a particular amount of time, you will start to experience contractions over here. And they will become more and more rapid, and they are extremely uncomfortable. So you begin to notice and acknowledge how long you can override those contractions using just your mental ability. And then you will begin to notice and acknowledge in your body, they are now increasing in terms of time frame and in terms of intensity. And this is where I would choose to come up and have a breath. If you don't choose to come up and have a breath at that point, then you will experience what we call an LMC, a lack of motor control. So you'll start to do the samba, we call it, in the water. And yes, at depth, that is dangerous, because then your body has to rescue you. The interesting thing of what happens when you're having an LMC is your jaw locks. So you still don't swallow water and drown at that point. So your body protects you at so many levels. If you then ignore the LMC, which you can when you develop your mind power sufficiently, and myself and Charles have experimented with this, then you will black out. If you black out on land, no problem. Your body will automatically revive itself. If you black out in the water, yes, that is extremely dangerous, because then at that point you might swallow water. So a blackout is extremely serious. This is not what you want to be doing, though. You just want to be enjoying the experience. So as you build confidence and awareness of your body, so you begin to respond to your own body signals and choose who's in charge. And I'll just veer off ever so briefly. I take that and I move that into my life. I'm having an emotion. I'm having a thought. I'm having a feeling. I'm having a physical response to something. Who's in charge? The emotion,
the physical response, or me, my mind? Who gets to choose? Who gets to choose how I'm going to respond? So it's a nice sort of transposing of experiences. Another example in which we transpose experiences is the way that I was taught, and again, I was taught in a beautiful, gentle philosophy, is that because the numbers don't matter, unless you're competing, then don't look for the base weight. So we have a buoy and we drop a line and there's a base weight at the bottom of the line. The goal is not to get to the base weight. The goal is to experience yourself. So some days you might have problems equalizing. So what? Then you go to 5 meters. You've got nothing to prove. This isn't about ego. And often on the way down the line, we close our eyes and listen to our bodies. And when your body says, I'm happy here, that's where we stop. Hang on the line, open your eyes and see what the ocean presents to you, what it gifts you. And oftentimes you'll be going down the line with your eyes closed, and the next minute you'll hit something and you'll be like, oh, I'm at the base weight. So the goal isn't necessarily to get to 20 or 30 or 40 meters. The goal is to get to know yourself in a much deeper and more profound way, to accept yourself, to not judge yourself, to be open to what's happening within you. And that brings us into where we talk about vibrational frequencies. So with vibrational frequencies, we are emitting a vibrational frequency with our bodies all the time. Now, we can fake it sometimes on land in the real world, where we look all calm and relaxed and collected. Meanwhile, there was a picture once of a duck floating on the pond, looking ever so calm, and underneath these little feet were paddling like crazy. That's faking it, because all your sort of responses internally are freaking out, and yet you look calm and collected. That's cool on the surface. You can't do that in freediving, because what we're exploring is how extremely sensitive, particularly dolphins, whales, and sharks are to sound and vibrational frequency. And they will respond to what you are broadcasting. If you are broadcasting, I'm in distress, this is hard, this is tough, I don't know if I can hold my breath, that little bit of panic, the raised heart rate, the raised pulse, just your thoughts, your body starts to respond, they're not going to come anywhere near you. Or they might come near you because they perceive you as prey. When you are broadcasting that I'm so okay with myself right now, and that's why you don't push yourself to depths that you're not comfortable with. I'm so okay with where I am right now in the ocean. I'm opening my eyes, and whatever presents itself to me right now is my gift. And sometimes you don't get any ocean creatures that present themselves to you. And then you begin to notice those blues in the ocean. And I'm going to share a few pictures with you in a moment. You begin to notice the incredible hues of blue and how light plays with the color in the ocean. And I've had some of my absolute best freediving experiences where I've seen not a single sea creature, and I've come out feeling euphoric. I've never done drugs of any sort whatsoever, but it's the closest I can get to what people describe as an LSD trip, because these blue flashes just stay with you for hours afterwards with lights, pictures, shapes, patterns that are just playing in your mind. So when it comes to vibrational frequencies, and perhaps let me share the pictures with you first, and then I'll... Okay. This is a skipper in Sodwana. He runs a company called The Blue Juice. His name is Digger, and my preference is to work with him because he works extremely consciously with
Are you sharing your
whales and
screen?
dolphins.
Are you sharing a screen? I can't see it. Nobody on Zoom can see it.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, our technical department will get to that.
Thanks, Lewis.
Okay.
What I respect about Digger is that he won't allow you in the water if he senses that the dolphins are in distress or that they don't want to play with you today. He'll just say, for that reason, we just observe them from this particular point of view. And he's extremely aware of the fact that the ocean is their home, not ours. He once described it to me in this way, which I've never forgotten. When you go on a dolphin tour and you've paid your money, and so now you want to be guaranteed of an experience. This isn't Disney World. This is wild creatures. We don't incentivize them with any food or any fish. They choose to engage with us. And when they choose to engage with us, that's when you have your most profound experiences. If you're going to chase them and jump into the ocean to just get that moment, they're not going to stay for very many seconds. And essentially, what you're doing is this. If you were walking down the road and a whole group of 9, 10, 11, 12 people suddenly approached you at a very rapid rate and shoved GoPros in your face and started chasing you, you would think you were being mugged. You would get out of there as quickly as you can and you would be in distress. It would be like Diana and the paparazzi. And this is what ocean tours that chase dolphins do to the dolphins. That is not okay. So you need to understand that even if you pay for a dolphin trip, it's not Disney World. So we follow the dolphins, we travel with them for a while, and Digger watches their behavior. Are they at ease? Are they slowing down to keep pace with the boat? That means they're inviting us. They're engaging us. They're saying, come and play. If we stop the boat and they circle the boat, they are so ready. And that's when you have your best experiences. You then get in, and what we do is we dive as deep as we possibly can. If you can dive and just sit on the sand, forget about where the dolphins are. You've seen them, you know they're there, you know they're circling the boat. Dive and go deep. Go to the bottom and sit on the sand, or if the sand is too deep, just kind of hang. You'll learn buoyancy and things like that. Just kind of hang at your 6 meters, 7 meters, and they will stay and play. They will be curious. They will be, who are you? What are you doing here? You're gentle, you're loving, you're not invading my privacy. You're not making me feel like I'm being attacked. And we have had the most incredible experiences where they stay with us for 10, 15 minutes, circle us, find little pieces of shell and throw it to one another because they don't feel threatened or violated. So in that way, we're broadcasting that we're simply here having our experience. We're at peace, we're at ease. You're having yours, join us. And the bottlenose dolphins, particularly in Sodwana and Mozambique, are extremely open to human experiences. Are we going to? Okay. I've just seen something. I don't know if you'll hear him clearly, but he says they don't like it if we go in front of them. They don't like it if the engines are too loud. You've got to be very conscious of what their experience is of you. So what we do is we picture, what do I look like to them? Instead of making it about what can I get? What can I take home and say, look what I saw? What do I look like to them? Do I look like I'm threatening? I'm here to chase? Or do I look like I'm just chilling in the ocean? And then they'll automatically come to you. Yeah. So this is just what a free dive boat looks like and how we get ready. We often dive off scuba boats and then they're putting on all their gear and it's all testing and we go, let me check if my gear's ready. I'm good to go. And in that way, we can jump in and jump out at a whim. So this is just what it looks like, getting ready. Put on your weight belt, mask, snorkel, and fins, and you're good to go. You really don't need anything more than that. And in February, you can even dive without a wetsuit. You can just dive with a rash vest because jellyfish. Next one. So that's me having an ice bath because that's in training. And that's what statics looks like. My face is in the water. My arms are just absolutely relaxed. That's Charles's arm on my back. He's telling me the time. You choose whether you want to be conscious of time or not. I find that losing all sense of time is better for me. And then at a minute and a half, he'll bring me back to consciousness and just say, it's 1 minute, 30 seconds. At 2 minutes, he'll just put his hand on my back lightly and say, it's 2 minutes, 30 seconds, just so that I can correlate what am I experiencing in my body at that time. So you're never going to free dive without a buddy, because even there was that Olympic synchronized swimmer who had a blackout. It can happen to anyone on a bad day. So you're never going to dive without a buddy. That's a major layer of safety there. There's the dolphins playing with us. You can notice that I'm on the bottom looking up, and they're coming straight down at me. They're not avoiding me. They're not, I don't know if that's a video. Okay. See, that's, we call it Snell's window, where you see the sun. And at this point, they're already engaging with us. So then we can swim around them and go back up and take breaths and come back down, because we've already established within that this is going to be a pleasant experience for both of us. That's me. I'm always the one with the blue belt and the white mask. Wow. This was magnificent. We were freediving in the ocean, doing our depth practice, and this whale just came at us out of nowhere. Literally out of nowhere. The next minute we're like, oh my gosh, this is happening. So we must have looked like we were being playful and enjoying ourselves. That just gives you an idea of these exquisite blues and the different colors of blue. You can become so mesmerized with just the blue that in itself is a gift. The way the light plays with it is so calming and so peaceful. And there's a whale right there. As we go down, they're at the bottom. We didn't even know it. And you can see that they slowed down to swim with us, because there's no way you're going to keep up with a whale. There is no way. So they've particularly chosen to slow down, because the whales are far more sensitive to sound and vibrational frequency. So if you're going to start flapping furiously, they're not going to stay. Wow. Yeah. Just wow. There were no other words. I don't know if we can take it to the next one. That's the whale showing us. You can see that she's put her calf or her baby on this side, the side closest to us. Now, she wouldn't do that if she wasn't feeling comfortable. She would protect her calf. She would make sure the calf was on the other side. So she's showing us, she's bragging. She's saying, I feel safe with you, because we haven't dive bombed her. We haven't gone chasing her. We've just allowed her to come to us.
I think you said there were orcas in the area.
There might have been, Digger suggested that perhaps she was bringing her baby in closer to us because orcas eat the baby whales. Yeah, we didn't see them. I think that's my limit of where I would be a bit fearful.
Ja. Ach no, fuck, man. Not okay. What's the
You can see how slowly it's moving. Not scared of us. Humpback. This was about 3-4 weeks ago at Sodwana. And the beauty of that was, again, we were just minding our own business, free diving, just doing depth. There were 9 of us. And as that happened, when we surfaced, there were grown men who burst into tears. And for good reason. It's a very weird experience. It's very difficult to describe in words. My own philosophy, and there's no medical or scientific evidence behind this, my philosophy is that the whale song goes right through your body. You, besides hearing it, you can actually feel it. It is so incredibly loud that you actually feel it moving right through your body. And my belief system, what I'd like to believe, and I'm so curious if research can ever be done on this, is that that sound that moves straight through your body, and let's call it the aura that the whale is emitting and putting out into the ocean, that you are now part of, alters your DNA. It actually alters your DNA, because on a trip of 5, 6, 7 days, everybody is walking around in complete Zen mode from morning to evening, and nobody's on anything except ocean alchemy. Just this absolute, you feel like you're walking lighter. And I'm very curious to know what is being transmitted, because as that whale swam past us, you could literally feel her essence of peace, unconditional love, and acceptance. And I think that was the big message from her, and what I've taken as a metaphor for my life as well. We often hear of or wish for unconditional love. And then you might read certain wise books that say, if my people, then I will. So what's unconditional love? The only experience I've ever had of unconditional love is right there, where this whale didn't care who you were, how much money you had, what you drove, what you said to your wife that morning, whether you cheated on your tax returns. It didn't matter who you were. She shared her being with you. And if that's not enough to just alter your sense of awe and magnificence at the privilege that we get to be on this planet and share this space with these creatures and be grateful and thankful for every flower, because this being chose to share herself with us because we happened to be there. That for me was unconditional love.
I think we should watch that video again.
Definitely.
What do you guys think?
He took her time. She wanted to be there. Now, one flick of her tail and you wouldn't be able to keep up. So that's what conscious freediving is about. Allowing the ocean to rule itself. Sharks are interesting too. They've gotten a bad rap from even way back from the years of Jaws. And yes, they are predators, and yes, they can be dangerous. However, again, when you dive with them in such a way that you remember that sharks' eyesight is not very, very good. It's also only curious. So the shark perceives the buoy and the entire line, which is a 20, 25, 30-meter line, and everybody who's on that line as one entity, it's not going to attack you. You look 30 meters bigger than what it is. It doesn't recognize you. You are moving extremely slowly down that line. If you know that you're in what we call having Zambezi tax, if you're in an area where you have to pay your Zambezi tax, you move extremely slowly down the line because predators move slowly. So then it will perceive you as a predator, and it perceives this enormous being. It's not going to want to attack you. It comes to see what you are. Who are you in my ocean? And we've had Zambezi sharks circle us, bull sharks circle us 2 or 3 times, and then they make their way off. They just want to check what's going on in their ocean. The minute you begin to panic or show distress signals or move rapidly, you could be putting yourself in risk. It's not Disney World. So, yes, we're still learning so much about the ocean. One last piece of information on how we don't even know yet how the ocean responds to vibrational frequency and sound. There's a gentleman who lives in Sudwana by the name of Neville Avil. I think I'm pronouncing his surname correctly. I just know him as Neville. He's even had a fish species named after him. He was sharing with us that many years ago, 30 years ago, they recorded the coral reefs. And now that the coral reefs are dying, they played those recordings back to the coral reefs, and they began to flourish. So when they heard their own song being played back to them, they responded. Hence, I feel that the more of us who free dive with an open heart, with love and curiosity, and put those frequencies into the ocean, the more prolific sea life might become. These are just my ideas and theories, but there seems to be some basis of truth to that. So once you get into free diving, you also learn to drop your brain waves. Beta brain waves are the brain waves we operate on everyday occurrences, driving a car, checking out what's happening around us, having conversations. And then alpha brain waves are those brain waves that are so much slower. You know, those experiences that you have just before you fall asleep at night, where you're conscious of someone calling your name, and if you wanted to, you could rouse yourself and respond, but you just prefer to stay there in that space. Those are the brainwaves we get into just before we dive through meditation. Some people use yoga, some people use meditation, some people use some breath work. Whatever works for you, whatever you're comfortable with. We spend a good hour before we get in the water, putting ourselves in alpha brainwaves so that you're so at peace with yourself. And it's in those moments when your answers actually come. Einstein said that you can't solve a problem at the same level of consciousness at which it was created. We create problems in beta brainwave. He insulted me, he said this, I don't like that. And then we try and solve it over there. We need to drop ourselves into peace and acceptance and stillness, and the answers simply come, and so do the whales. So that why saying became very real to me in that moment of be still and know that I am God, whatever that means for you. So yes, there are competitions, and yes, you can get into the technique. There's an incredible amount of technique that goes into free diving once you want to become competitive or do it more frequently, in terms of streamlining your body, how you position your body, how you move your ankles, where you keep your face. Those are all physical technicalities. We do a lot of breathwork tables, step-up tables, where you hold your breath for a minute, 15-second rest, a minute and a half, 15-second rest, 2 minutes, 15-second rest, as many as you can with just 15-second rests in between. So that's your training, and that's the technical side of it. But I assure you that you can have the most magnificent freedive experience without doing any of that, by simply holding your breath for 30 seconds. This whale that came past us, we had 2 novices who were freediving for the second time in their lives, and they got this experience. So begin to explore, begin to be curious, begin to be playful, without self-judgment, without making it about projecting into the future, trying to get somewhere, trying to achieve something. Simply be, and you might surprise yourself. That's it from me.
I think the universe is thinking about it. Whoever that God is who was listening. So we will have power on. Hopefully, Lewis, you're still there.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, great. So the wonder is that we have our own inverter in play with our own internet, because we had anticipated this was going to happen. And if we use the club's internet, we lose our guys on Zoom. So everybody on Zoom, just know we're thinking about you and we're caring about you, and that you're still with us because we care so much. Okay. So just before we get into the question space, maybe just take a minute or two, and if you can just share with the guys where you are with your certification and your planning and your thoughts for the future.
Yeah. Yes. So my wellness center plays a lot into this, because I do many programs on anxiety, depression, trauma, personal development, programming from our childhood, which keeps us stuck in repeating patterns of behavior, choosing the same people in relationships, choosing the same type of experiences repeatedly, just with different faces. That's a lot of the work I do at Shekinah. I run various processes, family constellations, rapid transformation processes, so that I own that building, and I also am the head facilitator. So that's a lot where my heart is. Yet I find that freediving really connects with that, and that we could begin to expand into retreats using freediving as an extra layer of that type of personal consciousness. So I am currently doing my Molchanov qualification. So for depending on what you want to achieve. In my opinion, Molchanov is the top qualification in the world, because it's been running for several years. They have extremely intense qualification standards. And Alexei Molchanov just broke the world record of 136 meters. So Alexei, who's running the school, he can walk the walk. So you definitely want to associate yourself with people like that. So for a beginner certification at Molchanov, you need to be able to swim 25 meters underwater, just in a normal swimming pool on one breath, and hold your breath for 2.5 minutes, and do a depth of, stand corrected, about 15 meters. Wave 2, which is the advanced training, you need to be able to swim 75 meters underwater with one breath, and hold your breath for 4 minutes, and go to a depth of 30 meters. This is because you're training to be the safety for other people. This is about your own experience as well, but if you want to safety other people, you're going to need to be able to do these things. And then for an instructor trainer, you need to be able to hold your breath for 5 minutes plus, and I think it's 100 meters dynamics, we call it dynamics, and a depth of about 60 meters. Those who qualify as instructors always go beyond that point, because then they're so familiar. So that is my goal. I'm currently completed the advanced, and so the next step is the instructors. And the goal for that is to go all over the world and train in Dahab and amazing places like that. I am spending December in Mauritius, because to the best of my knowledge, there is no freedive school in Mauritius at the moment. Plenty of scuba schools, but no freedive schools. So I would love to open a freedive school there and instruct and simply spend my life in a very simplistic accommodation with very little material possessions, and getting to swim in the ocean every single day and have this experience every single day. What could be better in life than that? So that's where I'm sort of taking myself at this point.
Okay. And certainly one of my thoughts is getting enough people from ESSA together to maybe experience a freedive experience,
Yes.
a freedive workshop, a freedive program, maybe head to Sodwana, all of us together, and give it a go.
Absolutely. We can. We train in quarries over here. There's Miracle Waters in Brits and there's Bass Lake in the Vereeniging area. So you will still have quite an interesting personal experience just training in the quarry, especially if you've not done it before. You won't see much more than mud, but you will have that connectivity with self and that euphoric experience when you actually break a self-imposed limitation, not a number that I tell you to reach because now you've got to achieve anything. Just a self-imposed limitation, fear of water, fear of holding your breath for a long period of time, what it feels like to float up, because as you're coming up, you are weightless, timeless. What's going on in your mind, what conversations you're having with yourself at that period. So I'm absolutely more than happy to open up introduction. I don't have my instructors yet simply to open up the experience and then refer you to people that I've worked with that are absolutely amazing, John McCarthy, Charles Miller, and take it further there if you are interested.
Okay. So if anybody is, then reach out to me and we'll start putting a list together, maybe look putting a group, maybe early next year sometime. Okay. All right, any questions? How are we doing for time? Time, anybody?
Yeah.
8:15. Okay, we literally have 5 minutes. We're over. The kid's just going to shout at me again. I get shouted at every week. But yes, Mariam.
Okay, so as I said to you, Fiona, I do breath work. So I have two questions. One is when you do the dive, you dive on holding the breath. You don't expel the breath before you actually dive.
Not
Just
at
a
all.
quick one. If you can just repeat the question for that. Let's do one question at a
Yeah.
time. You can just repeat the question for the
Very
guys
good
online.
question. When you're free diving, you hold the breath and you don't expel it at any time. Absolutely not. The very first time you release it is once you've surfaced. So when you are training at very high levels, we do training which is called FRC and RV. So your functional residual capacity that you have in your lungs is where you breathe out just naturally, not a great exhale, just and see how long you can hold your breath for. When you exhale all of your air, you'll actually feel how your rib cage rises, your intercostal diaphragmatic muscles come up. You have absolutely no air and see how long you can hold your breath on that. If you do that underwater, which we do because it's training, it is extremely dangerous. You're very close to blacking out at that point. So you're going to have several levels of safety. So for that reason, you take your in-breath and you hold it all the way to the top. And you only expel it when you've surfaced.
Thank you. And then the other question, which is more like a comment, is that you can experience some of the benefits of breath holding on land by doing some of these practices. If you don't like water and you don't like the idea of diving underwater, you can actually have some of the benefits.
Most
of
definitely.
Because I've done breath work where you actually do go into a different state of consciousness. And
That's absolutely
just,
relevant. I'll repeat that. You can enter different states of consciousness by doing breath hold just on land. It's called dry apnea, and 10 minutes is sufficient to enter an altered state of consciousness because you have dropped into alpha brainwave. You have slowed all the response systems, your heart rate, your respiratory rate, you've slowed it all down. And this is unusual for your body. So your body is going to shift consciousness.
It's really lovely, and it's cheaper and it's safer than taking drugs.
Yes.
So that was the workshop that I did at Shekinah in that breathwork space, and it was really a fantastic experience. So, all right, anybody, let's just do 2 questions here. Mark, is there another?
Oxygen therapy. 100% oxygen under pressure. Obviously, you guys do the diving. Do you use it to assist? Does it help? No.
No.
That's what the question was.
The hyperbaric oxygen tanks, they are healing if you have a physical ailment. It's not necessary. This is about your personal experience. This isn't, it's not necessary. Keep it as natural, as pure, and as much connected to your own capabilities as possible.
Jonathan?
I'm curious what your recovery time is after you go on a dive like that. You said, wait 4 or 5 minutes.
Also, really exceptionally good question. What is your recovery period after a dive? So we're taught a technique called hook breathing. As soon as you surface, you're going to do a few breaths like this. You're going to go. So you're going to suck in as much oxygen as you can, as rapidly as you can, for about 15 seconds. And that supports your recovery time enormously. So because you're on a buoy and you've got 2 or 3 people on the buoy, you take turns. It's only 1 down, 1 up. So the next person goes down and you're now watching them to safety them. And that's your recovery period. So you're just breathing normally, or you're doing breathe ups. So you're breathing in, holding your breath for 4 seconds, breathing out. So you're doing those recovery breaths while they're going down. So that by the time it's your turn again, you're ready. Nothing to prove. If you're not ready, you just tell the person next to you, I'm skipping this turn, it's your turn. Personally, I have very short recovery periods. So if I do a 5-minute breath hold, I'm back down after about 2 minutes. Most people, after about a 2-minute, 2.5-minute breath hold, would need about a 5-minute recovery.
Just one more.
Yeah. So following from that, is there any sort of longer duration? I mean, are you tired? Is there any sort of physical, you're recovering quickly so you can dive again, but is there anything, any residual?
For me, I can only, is there any residual recovery period or sort of symptoms? For me, and I can only speak from our personal experience and from those that I have dived with, depending, I suppose, on your fitness levels, depending, I suppose, on your mental state of being at the time. For me, not at all. You enter into this state of absolute euphoria, which lasts for hours and hours, about 6-7 hours afterwards. So it's like LSD without the LSD. So you're feeling very calm and peaceful and relaxed. Hydration is important afterwards. I would say that's the big one, because you don't realize how dehydrated you're getting. You don't realize you're sweating in your wetsuit. You only get 2 types of people: those who urinate in their wetsuit and those who lie about urinating. So you're losing a lot of body fluid and you're in the hot sun. So if you want to dive well the next day, then you're going to want to hydrate as much as possible that day. If you neglect that, you're not going to have a great dive the next day. You might experience a bit of sort of stiffness.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. Very much so, because the heart is really doing the same thing as when you were running, just at a different pace. So.